Hey crew, and welcome back. Clayton here. Today I want to talk to you about variables. These are going to be the building blocks for any game that you make within Unreal. Variables can control everything from the player's health, projectile speeds, or even the state of a door being open or closed. But don't worry, we're going to make this quick, so let's jump right into an example. Here I have Unreal 5.4 open with the standard third-person template project along with the starter content added. So I've created myself a folder called Blueprints. I'm going to go inside of here, right-click, create a blueprint class. For this blueprint, I'm going to create a basic actor because I'm not going to need the ability to move. The rest of these we'll cover in a later video. So I'm going to call this BP_ball. And I'm going to open that up. If this opens in its own window, you can grab this and dock it to your main window layout. So from here, I'm going to add a sphere just so we have something to see. Or if you want to, instead of adding a sphere directly, you can add a static mesh to your object if you want to load a custom mesh to use instead. For now, I'm going to stick with the sphere. On the sphere, I'm going to come over here on the right side to where it says static mesh. I'm going to make sure that's visible on my screen. I'm going to hit Control Space on my keyboard or click Content Drawer here so I can go to my starter content and materials, and I'm just going to find something different than this static white to look at for right now. I'm going to use the metal burnished steel from the starter content. You can click and drag this over here to your material, or what you can do is highlight this in your content drawer, or you can hit this arrow to then automatically select that. And as you can see, the material has been changed for us. So I'm going to compile and save. I'm going to go back to my map. I'm going to go back into the content drawer, go up to my blueprints folder. I'm just going to drag that into the scene right here so we can see it. I'm going to position this a little closer. Okay, we have this in the world, but we can't really do anything with it. So let's jump in and check out some different variables that we could use for some basic functionality on this. Okay, we've created our BP ball, and for now, that's all we're going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to my content drawer. I'm going to go down to third person blueprints, and I'm going to open the third person character. So on the left side, you're going to see a section called variables. I'm going to go ahead and click plus to add a new one. By default, it's going to ask for a name. So I'm going to call this is metal ? And we're going to leave our default type as a Boolean. So if you hit this drop down, you can see there are a lot of default types right away. Up here, a Boolean is true or false, on or off, however you want to think about that. Some of the other common types are going to use are an integer. You can think of these as whole numbers. So this is going to be health. This is going to be score, coins collected, those type of items. From there, you have your float variable type. This is going to be more of your precision decimal sort of numbers. So this will be projectile speed, running speed, stat modifiers, those type of things. From there you have string. This is where you're going to keep names of items, messages to display to characters, those sort of things. The difference between string and text usually comes down to localization, but we can get into that in a later video. From there you have transform. Transform is going to be multiple values stored into the same variable, such as X, Y, and Z coordinates. So from there I'm going to add another variable. This one I'm going to call ball ref. So something else you can do with these variables is you can get very specific with them. So if I wanted to, I know our ball ref is an actor. So I can search for actor in the drop down. Or if I want, I can get very specific and reference the BP ball that we created. So only that type can be loaded into this. Now you will see there are some options for this particular type of variable. You will have a direct object reference. This is typically for items that are already loaded into the scene or you know they're loaded into memory. If you choose this type, it will be loaded into memory with your character. If you do a soft object reference, this will make a reference to the item, but it will not be loaded into memory. You will have to deal with the loading and unloading yourself when you need it. So we can go more into depth on that when we get into performance and optimization in Unreal in a future video. So for now, I'm going to choose object reference because I know for this example, the ball is already in the scene. Typically, you would not refer to another actor like this directly from your character, but for this example, we're just going to go ahead and go with it. Now that I've created these, what can I do with them? So in this case, I'm going to come up here to the add input mapping. This is where the event begin play is for the standard third-person character. I'm going to make this box a little bigger and give ourselves some room, maybe move it up a bit. I'm going to take these and I'm going to move these over so I can create some room and not interfere with the default loading logic. So from here, I'm going to drag out from the event begin play pin, and I'm going to look for a node called sequence. So this node is going to run everything beyond this pin, then it will come down to this pin, and as you can see, you can add more. So this is a good way, especially on something like begin play, you can then separate your logic. So on this pin, I'm going to want to make a reference to the ball that is in our scene so I can load our variable. So even though I made this of type BP ball, it is not aware of the one that is manually in our scene right now. So I'm going to drag this out. So from here, you can either get a reference to this ball or you can set the value of this ball. So I'm going to do a set. I'm going to move this over here. And from this pin, I'm going to say get actors of class. And on this from here, I'm going to say BP ball because that's the only thing we're interested in at this time. So this node is going to look throughout our scene and find everything that's loaded as a BP ball. So in this case, it will return an array. So on our particular ball reference here, if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see this indicator right here. If you drop this down, you'll notice we only have one. We're only going to reference a single one right now. If I expect multiple to be in the scene, I can choose an array. So for now, let's stick to single. So from here, we're going to drag out from the out actors, and we're just going to say, get a copy. And we're just going to leave this as 0. So just return me the first one that you find. I'm going to take the output from that and set the reference to our ball variable right here and make sure I set up the execution pin. So what we've done right here is we've filled information into the variable ball ref that we created earlier with information from what's in the scene at the beginning of the seed load time. So from here, I'm going to come down underneath everything else. I'm just going to find some empty space here. And I'm going to search for keyboard. And I'm going to scroll down until I find, let's use E for this example. All right, so every time I press E on my keyboard, what do we want to do with it? Well, what we probably want to do is, first we need to know, is the sphere metal or not? So if I drag out the is metal question mark, I can either get or set a reference to this. In this case, I want to get a reference to it so I can ask it a question. Alternatively, I'm going to delete that for a second. Alternatively, you can hold down Control when you drag that out for a get, or you can hold down Alt when you drag this out for a set. So from here, I want to get a branch. So you can type branch, or if you want, alternatively, drag this out and just press B on your keyboard. It's going to give you a branch node and hook up your condition. So from here, is metal true? So if this is true, from here, I will want to get a reference to my ball. So on the ball, what I'm going to want to do is drag this out, and I'm going to say set material. And you're going to notice right here, set material, and it's going to say sphere next to it. If I click on that and straighten out my nodes so I can read them, you're going to see that it automatically knows that from the blueprint that we created, we want to set the material on the sphere underneath. So if you go back to BP ball and look at the upper left-hand side, you're going to see this hierarchy here. So here's the blueprint, and then a child of that is the sphere. The sphere is what holds the material that we want to reference. So it's one of the nice things about Unreal is it will make these connections for you. All right, so I'm going to move this down here like this. I'm going to want to set the material when it's true, and what do I want to set it to? So let's come down to the content drawer. Let's go to starter content, materials. Let's just scroll down through here and find something that we like. So for this example, let's use the tech hex tile pulse. I'm going to highlight this, and then I'm going to come up here and hit this arrow right next to it, and it'll make that reference for me. So right now, let's just hit compile and save. And if we go to our map and we hit play, so we'll come in, we see the ball, and I'm going to press E on my keyboard, and nothing happened. So let's take a look as to why. So I'm going to press escape. I'm going to come out of there. Right now I'm going to click on is metal. We're going to notice that the default value is false. So in our branch, we asked it, is it metal? It said no or false. And we don't have anything on that execution pin. So in this case, I'm going to set that to true. I'm going to compile and save. We're going to play again. And in this case, I'm going to press E, and you'll see that the material changes. But if I press E again, nothing else happens. So back in the third person blueprint, we're going to come in and we're going to take this node and we're going to copy it. So Control C, Control V. I'm going to come down here, and we can use the same reference to the sphere for the target, just like we did up above. And on false, we're going to come down here and execute this one. So for this, I want to find the burnished steel again and reference that right here. So compile and save. So if I come in and play my game, you see we hit E, we switch the material. You notice it doesn't switch back. So in this case, this is because we're never resetting this variable to what it needs to be. So I'm going to grab is metal. I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to drag this out. So in this case, we're setting it to the tech material. So in this case, it will not be metal anymore. So I'm going to leave this unchecked. I will drag this out again, holding Alt. In this node, we did set it to the metal material. So I'm going to drag this out. I'm going to say that is true. Compile and save. Come back to the map. Play again. And this time, if we hit E, it switches. And if we hit E, it switches back. So there we go. Very basic implementation of how to read and write to some of these variables. So let's do one more example right quick. In this case, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this health. And I want my health to be a whole number. So I'm going to choose integer. As you can see, there's no default value here. So when that happens, you have to compile. In this case, I want to give it a value of 100 to start with. Now I'm going to look for R in this case. Okay, now that I have this, I'm going to take off of here. I'm going to drag out my health and get a reference to that. I'm going to subtract, so you can type subtract, or if you want to, you can hit minus if you have a numpad on your keyboard. I'm going to move this down here. Let's subtract 10 from the health. And then I'm going to hold Alt, drag out health again, and set that value. And then I'm going to print string so we can see this. And we will pass in the value that we just set for our health. And you will see Unreal will do the conversion for you from an integer to a string. That's what this node is doing. Let's make this green so we can see it a little better. 2 seconds on the screen is fine. So let's compile and save. We'll come back here if I play the game. So I'm going to hit R. If you look in the upper right hand corner, you'll see our health counting down. So problem is right now I can just keep going and going and going, and there's no effect on our character at all. So I'm going to come out of that, go back to the blueprint. So this is a good place to have an isDead variable. I'm going to set this to a Boolean. And in this case, the default value of false, I'm going to compile so I can see this here. The default value of false would be correct in this case. So once I'm going to go ahead and leave the print string here. So on this side, I could either drag from this node, or since we just set the health variable, to keep my blueprints clean, I'm going to get a reference to health. I'm going to drag out and I'm going to ask it, are you less than or equal to 0? In that case, I'm going to pull up here and add a branch. Once again, I drag on that and press B on my keyboard. We're going to connect this. So if our health does drop to 0 or less, and in this case, we want to drag out is dead and set that to true. And if it does not, we don't want to do anything on the false. So now that we have this set, we can come back to the beginning of this. I'm going to move this node over a little bit like that. And then we're going to add a branch right here. And then we're going to ask it if it's dead or not. So in this case, is dead true, false? Since I already have everything set up on true, I'm going to reverse this logic and add a not Boolean. So when I press R, we're going to see, is this character not dead? If that is true, we're going to come in and continue the logic that we had before. If the character is dead, we're just going to print string. And we're just going to say dead. We're going to make this red color. Say OK on that. Compile and save. So in this case, if I come back and I play the game again, I press R on the keyboard, you'll see our health counting down. Once we reach 0, we're dead. So in this case, none of that additional logic for the health is being ran anymore since we've set our Boolean. Okay, crew, that's what I have for variables. Now I want you to open a project and give it a try yourself. Get used to tracking some different things, reading and setting the variables. Join me in my next video where I'm going to go over proper blueprint communications using blueprint interfaces, and I'm going to teach you how to detect interactable objects and highlight them for your game. So if you found this information helpful, please give me a like and a subscribe on the channel, as this is a brand new channel and it does help me out a lot. If there is something particular you guys are wanting to learn right away, please leave me a comment. I will review every single one of them, and I would love to make some custom tutorials for you guys. Thanks again. I'll see you in my next video.